Hey, good morning. I'm Paige Browning. It's Thursday, and this is Seattle Now. Salmon are a part of our identity in the Pacific Northwest, but the population's struggling, and it has for decades. Federal lawmakers think they have a solution: culling, or thinning out, or put less nicely, killing another Northwest staple, pinnipeds, a group that includes seals and sea lions. We'll hear more about this debate from KUOW reporter Cornelius Hocker in a minute, but first, let's get you caught up. Animal officials have ruled out animal cruelty as the cause of several recent, highly publicized cat deaths in South King County. Pet owners had been posting on social media wondering if someone was killing cats in the area. But it was wildlife behind the attacks, according to a new investigation by Regional Animal Services of King County. The agency is reminding people to keep cats indoors or in enclosures because outdoor pets can be hit by cars, exposed to diseases, or get in fights with other animals. Hey, got thoughts about light rail? Good news if so. Sound Transit wants your feedback on its service plan, which it asks for each year. One thing the agency's looking into is when to shut down light rail to do routine maintenance. That survey closes this Friday. And here's a scam to know about. State health officials say imposters are posing as state employees over the phone. The Department of Health says the scam callers are making it look like they're calling from a DOH number and might tell people their medical information has been compromised and ask them to verify personal information. If you get a call that seems suspicious, report it to the State Attorney General's office. We'll be back with more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. This story starts with Waffles, a baby seal. Over 4th of July weekend, the 3-week-old pup was found in Bellingham with a head wound. Waffles was quickly sent to a marine wildlife rehabilitation center called SR3.
My first encounter with Waffles was when he was brought into the hospital. He was thin and seemed to have a wound on his head, but that's very common this time of year.
That's Casey McLean, the executive director and veterinary nurse at SR3. The facility sees about 60 to 70 animal patients a year.
So we didn't have any initial concerns, and we did our normal stabilization process of rehydrating the animal, feeding the animal, and then the next day when we went to take a full exam and radiographs is when we discovered that he had been shot.
She and her colleagues ended up euthanizing Waffles when they determined his injuries were too severe. McLean says the attack on Waffles is part of a trend that's fueled by misinformation. There's a belief that seals and sea lions are eating too many salmon, leading to population decline.
Seals and sea lions are not preventing salmon recovery. They do eat salmon. Saying they eat salmon is like saying I eat dinner. Of course, every day it happens. They also eat 60 different species of fish, and they are a critical part of the ecosystem.
Despite all that, a new bill in Congress proposes to give federal, state, and tribal authorities more leeway to kill seals and sea lions in the name of saving the salmon. KUOW reporter Cornelius Hocker is on the story, and he's here to chat. Hey, Cornelius, thanks for joining us.
Hey there. Thank you so much for having me.
And people who are longtime listeners of the show have not heard you on yet. It's your first Seattle Now appearance. Thank you.
I'm excited to be here.
So
I'm a longtime listener.
Longtime listener, first-time guest.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, to get into the story, seals and sea lions, a flipper-footed group of animals called pinnipeds, they've always lived on the Northwest coast. What is happening to them as of late?
So whenever you described what happened to Waffles, you heard Casey say, this is common. Now, what has been uncommon is the fact they found the seal alive. A lot of times they just wash up on a beach and, they do a necropsy, which is an autopsy for those animals. And then they determine, it was shot in the head. So that's been kind of the different thing for them. Over the last year, they've had 3 of them come to them alive with headshot wounds.
So they've seen 3 alive in less than a year. That seems like a lot to me. But some people might think 3 isn't really that many. Can you help us contextualize that?
Yeah. So in my conversation with Casey, she said something. It's a little funny. She said, whenever these seals are shot, they don't have family members to call 911 to say someone shot my seal cousin or my seal brother. And so, yes, they have 3 come to them alive and shot, but there are an unknown amount that get shot. They languish and die in Puget Sound. They're eaten by predators who, free food for them. So it's hard to know the actual number that are actually taken out in that manner.
Yeah. I've actually seen a seal dead, washed up on a beach. They're huge.
Yeah.
It's a really amazing sight in many ways. But who is shooting Northwest seals and sea lions, and why?
That's the thing. We don't really know for sure. However, you go to comments on stories like this, they posted it on their Instagram, you go to Reddit, and you see people saying, I am a fisherman and I know other fishermen are shooting them. And as to why, a lot of people think that seals and sea lions, they are the cause for the salmon population decline.
Yeah.
And they think that because it's the only thing they can see. It's the physical manifestation of these animals are eating the salmon are declining, they must be the main reason. But we know the science bears out that's just not the case.
This is reminding me of the coyote issue in town. Everyone blames coyotes when their cats get killed, but researchers will say that that's not usually what's happening. But back to pinnipeds, Congress is pointing to seals and sea lions as cause for our famously diminishing salmon populations. There's a bill proposed. It hasn't gone anywhere just yet, but tell us more about what's happening in Congress.
So it's H.R. 9621, the Northwest Endangered Salmon Predation Prevention Act of 2026.
What a title.
A mouthful. And the representatives are Rep. Baumgardner and Rep. Randall, respectively, Republican and Democrat. So it's bipartisan, which we know in this day and age, if a bill is bipartisan, there's a chance it could get passed. And so, as you mentioned in the intro, they just want to make it easier for state, federal, and tribal officials to be able to kill these marine animals. And the representatives, they lambasted in some comments to King 5 the shooting of this seal, but they said their bill has nothing to do with what happened to Waffles and the other animals.
They don't want just like random people out there killing animals.
No. They want it to be done officially the right way that they're proposing in this bill.
And why do they say this is the right move?
Well, it's just the physical manifestation of the salmon decline that people want to see some sort of action taken. And so you can't combat climate change with a bill. You can't combat habitat destruction with a bill. You can't combat toxins with a bill. But you can say we're going to make it easier to kill these animals that are eating salmon.
And you just said climate change, habitat loss, and toxins
in the water,
which these are things that are killing salmon.
Exactly.
But you can't just easily wipe those out.
Right.
Cornelius, who is supporting this idea to get rid of pinnipeds to help save salmon?
Yeah, Paige, there are several different groups, including state wildlife officials and Pacific Northwest tribes, and they say the bill isn't intended as a broad cure-all for historic salmon loss, but rather as a critical tool to manage localized pinch points. Now, those pinch points include artificial structures like dams, bridges, and fish ladders. Migrating salmon, studies have shown, become sitting ducks, right? So there was a study at the Hood Canal Bridge where it showed that up to half of the migrating steelhead smolts did not make it through, and they were eaten, and presumably eaten by pinnipeds.
Oh, that's interesting. So their argument is, look, we have these pinch points,
right,
like dams or wherever, where the salmon or the smolts are sitting there, and the sea lions just get to chill and have a buffet.
A buffet, essentially, yes. That's exactly what they're saying. Also, in the congressional testimony, they were just arguing that targeted removal works, not a wide, let's just kill all the seals and sea lions, but just targeted removal. And that's what they say this bill is intended to do.
And you said it's not just the tribal fishery entities like the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission. It's also Washington's Department of Fish and Wildlife?
Exactly. So an official from there, Nate Pamplin, noted that targeted removals in the Columbia River since 2020 have saved an estimated 64,000 returning salmon.
Okay.
I did want to add that the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission Chairman Ed Johnson Jr. added that non-lethal deterrents no longer work on habituated predators. There are strict limits on how many they can kill. So you have to get permits, and it's limited, and it's capped at a fraction of the total seal population. But it's a necessary tool they say, to kill them because the non-lethal deterrents, they know what they are. And like they're not afraid of them anymore.
Oh,
so like
the pinnipeds
the
do.
pinnipeds do, yeah. So like the loud noises, they know, they're like, that's not going to hurt us. That's just a loud
interesting.
noise that they're trying to scare us away, and it doesn't work. They're smart. They're mammals. So
They're mammals.
And they have a brain.
Huh. So that is all really interesting, these arguments of, well, we just want it to be targeted. We don't want people going out willy-nilly killing
Exactly.
pinnipeds. But are we sort of oversimplifying this story by blaming sea lions and seals for having too big of a fish appetite? Because salmon have a lot of other predators. And as for seals, they're serving other purposes in the marine food web. So what are you hearing in this vein?
You know, it's a tough situation because on both sides, they have studies and science to back them up. You know, the wildlife officials and the tribes, they have these studies that show localized, targeted removal does work. But in the greater scheme of things, we know that all the studies that we've seen where people remove an apex predator, it doesn't help, well, in this case, the salmon overall, but like what's being preyed upon overall. And it's this back and forth, you know, like which study are we going to use for this? And that's why, you know, SR3 is worried because they feel as if this bill goes through, even though the bill writers don't intend for it to be a let's kill all the pinnipeds, a regular person, you know, someone out there sees the bill and says, oh, we can do this because, you know, they're not looking at the particulars of the bill, the details about the permits.
They just
and the
hear
caps.
that message.
Right, exactly. So that's where we are.
Help us better understand what is happening to Washington's salmon population, because that's at the heart of all of this. As you've said, these pinnipeds are the thing we can see that's eating salmon as an apex predator. But what's happening with them? Their decline is not new.
Right. So in my reporting, I discovered that it was noted as early as the 1880s that the salmon population was declining. 1880s, 1890s. Then we get to, you know, the 1920s where we're building dams. The government we're destroying their habitats. There's a lot of fishing going on. And truly, it wasn't until the 90s that a lot of different varieties of salmon were placed on the Endangered Species Act. Now, during that time, we mentioned the Marine Mammal Act of 72, seal populations were going down as well. And so if this predator was also experiencing a decline along with its prey, that doesn't bear out. Like
that doesn't indicate that it was the predator itself making the salmon diminish.
Some could argue they were both experiencing environmental factors leading to their decline at the same time. And so the thing with the Marine Mammal Protection Act is by the late 90s, early 2000s, the seal population had stabilized. And so what we're seeing, many people see as an overabundance, is actually just a rebound to where they're supposed to be.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You might go to the coast or somewhere where, even in some of our waterways here in Seattle, and see a bunch of sea lions, and people are remarking that feels like a boom in the population.
Right.
But it's just a rebound to more healthy levels.
You know, the human experience is short. And so the people who were 30, 40, 50 in the 50s and 60s who saw the decimation, they're not around to like say, no, this is actually how it looked. But we know that there is data out there that proves it. And there was a reason why they passed the Marine Mammal Protection Act in 1972.
Cornelius Hocker is a reporter at KUOW. First time on the show.
Thank you so much.
Not the last time.
Not the last time.
Thank
I'm
you so
excited.
much for coming on.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening to Seattle Now. If you've got a second, I would love if you rate the show and review it on your podcast app. And before we go, we have a question for you. This week, we're asking listeners, the Blue Angels have been doing flyovers in Seattle since 1972. What do you think of this annual seafair tradition? Share your answer in the KUOW app. You do that by opening the menu and selecting Talk to Us. More at kuow.org/question. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Chang. It was edited by Vaughn Jones and Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Andy Hurst, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, and Patricia Murphy. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Paige Browning. Talk to you tonight for Evening Headlines.